Good day, my friends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day today. And welcome to Living Through My Inner Light. I'm Jeffrey Saunders, also known as the Canadian Healing Medium. So if you're new to my show, and what I am doing with this show is I'm bringing on people who are living through their authentic selves, living on their purpose, on their path, and giving back in the most beautiful way for whatever that means for each individual. But before we got to our higher path of living on that, oh, of course, I have stuff falling here.
Isn't that how it goes?
That's how it goes, because that's happening all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah. So me and Kady were actually just talking about this earlier, how things just happen, and
Yeah.
we just have to go with it because not everything is going to be perfect. And this is an example of it right now. So anyways, so what I was saying is that people who are giving back today and they're living through their authentic self, and before we got to this plane of existence on a higher path within ourselves, we had transformations. And a lot of people throughout life go through things, but they're too afraid to talk about it because people are going to think they're crazy. And I love the movement on where we are headed in our society today, where we can be open and honest and share and not worry as much about being held back because we're afraid of what people are going to think. So when we open up and we share, we can really start growing together in unity, and really start thriving in our lives, because we all have something to offer. There is great purpose within each of us. So before I introduce Kady, she had to go through, just like I and other people out there who are watching, we had to go through experiences in our life to bring us to our knowing, to that very beautiful being of light that lives within each of us. So I want to welcome Kady now. Welcome. Thank you, Kady, for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Honestly, both of us, I think our energies are going back and forth, and it's causing our technology issues and stuff. So it's a real thing.
Yeah, definitely. I've been really excited to have Kady come on because she has done a lot of work in her life to be where she's at today. And I'm getting major energy moving through me right now because of the beautiful person of who she is and what she is actually doing on giving back and changing lives today, helping people to be their best self. And right now, I want to give the spotlight to Kady Romagnuolo. I remember your name from the last time. We actually had a live once before, about a year ago, Unity Through Past Traumas, where I would bring people on and share about the traumas in their life. But this is a different show on what we are sharing on. So the spotlight is on you, Kady. Just really sharing about where you are today. Not going into the things we're going to go into, but just really sharing where you're at today and the accomplishments of just being really proud of where you're at today.
Oh, thank you. And it's funny you say that, because I think that's the toughest thing we as human beings sometimes have, is really appreciating where we are and feeling like we can accept the accomplishments, right? So thank you for giving that opportunity, because I think it's a lesson for my soul today too, in grabbing that. And so I'm a mindset and performance coach, and I never expected to be here. Never in a million years would have thought my life would be as a coach. And I really had a tough upbringing, right? There's many things that I went through in my childhood, my adult years, and through my career that just kept seeming like, why is my life meant to struggle? Why do I have so much anxiety? Why can't I function in society the way other people seem to? And where I am today is really only a 3 short years from that particular state, where things have drastically changed in my life, looking at all of those, really hard and difficult things that I was really holding on to in terms of past traumas that we've talked about before. But really, it's kind of been like the wake up before the shake up, or the shake up before the wake up, right? I said that in reverse, because some of these things that happen are just, I guess, meant to shake that part of you that needed looking at before you could move into what your next step truly is. So I feel really blessed to work with people today in the capacity that I do. We do really soul level deep work. I'm a career coach, but in a very unconventional way. And I just absolutely love that you've got this platform for us to share and have an intimate conversation today about, the realities of going through essentially a spiritual awakening, and what that means and how that's transformed my life.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. Also an author,
Yes.
having your
Yeah.
new books out, right?
Yeah. Thanks for that. I just glaze over it, right? Again, one of those
Yeah,
things
I don't
where
glaze over that. No, that's a huge accomplishment. And you have so many in your life. And I'm really happy that we get to put the spotlight on you today, because you deserve it for all the hard work, to be where you're at today, to give back in this beautiful way.
Thank you.
So, before she's going to start sharing on personal experiences, and I just want people to know we're going to actually do a live guided meditation guided by her at the end. So those of you who are watching and even on the replay, leave comments as well, and she can get back to you or reach out to her. If you want to connect with her, I'll have all that in the details at the end. I'll have it all put there. So we're going to start back at the time when she was 5, correct?
Yeah, 5 years old. So,
That's-
a lot of these memories at 5 years old, quite honestly, came back to me only in the last, say, 3 to 5 years. A lot of them were very repressed. And, the deeper parts of us, the unconscious parts of us, will sometimes repress memories, block memories that it's not quite sure if you're ready to accept what it is around that or feel that. And it's not even necessarily sometimes that those things were scary. It's just your unconscious really protecting you on where you are in your growth stages. So for me as a child, I really had a lot of issues sleepwalking. And quite honestly, I still sleepwalk today as an adult, not as often of an occurrence as back then, which is a little bit rare. So if you sleepwalk, you're in the audience, know that it's kind of a rare thing that not everybody does. And what happened for me at about 5 years old is I'm living in, my family home, my mom, my dad, and my older sister. And we had this little bungalow that my grandfather had actually built. And as we're living there, my sister and I, we shared a room, this little tiny house. And my family thought, hey, we kind of need some more space to live in. And they decided to jack up the actual, the whole house, dig the basement down so that we could have this lower living level. And I remember this so vividly now, but over the years had completely forgotten this whole time in my life, where once that basement was elevated, it was a space to live in. It was really odd that we never actually really finished it. So it was kind of like just this cold concrete floor where there was this big armchair that was plopped down there and not really much of anything else, some storage. And we as kids were pretty creeped out, with the scary basement, right? Nobody wanted to go down there. And I would find myself, I don't know how long this was going on before I noticed, but I would start waking up in the basement and specifically in this big armchair. So at 5 years old, I'm getting out of bed. I'm, sleepwalking downstairs, completely unaware of my actions, not turning any lights on. It was pitch black down there. And I would open my eyes suddenly and realize that I'm in the pitch black. And for a moment, not realize necessarily where I am, and coming back to consciousness and thinking I'm sitting here in this chair. And the funny thing was I was never scared. I never woke up on my own figuring what had gone on, never scared. And I'd walk back upstairs and go into my bed. And this is the logical part of what happened. I'd wake up, I'd go back to sleep. But as the memory started really coming back to me later in life, as I was working through some of the things I've gone through, the images started becoming very clearly as to what I was really doing down there in the basement. Wow. So I have this very clear image of almost waking in the chair, but not waking in the chair. And maybe if you're a sleepwalker or you have vivid dreams, this kind of connects with an experience that you've had of this sort of waking state, but not. And it's really like a trance state where I felt like I had not really any control of what I was doing, but fully aware of it. So it's almost like you could guide and direct, but it was like working through fog. And I would glance to the left of me sitting in this armchair, and there was this woman. So this woman who would be knelt down beside me and whispering in my left ear. And to this day, I have this really, really vivid, clear image of what this woman looked like, what she was doing, the whispering, and I could never really make out what she was trying to say to me, but I was never afraid. So I often calibrate now in
Mhm.
life on emotions, right? Like
Yeah.
where, in terms of dream state and things that are experienced, what is the emotion that is conveyed? Because
Yeah.
oftentimes that's more transparent, right, than the
Yeah.
logical things that are happening in the moment. And so I did this for quite some time, and went downstairs and communicated with what I now know to be a spirit in my basement, in my family home, that was somehow, I would say, unearthed or triggered for communication at the time of digging that basement down.
Wow. So when did you start? When did that start coming back to you of
Yeah,
remembering?
so I had probably like in my early 20s, I started to have the regular notion of, okay, I knew that I slept walked a lot. I knew that I went down to the basement. I remembered waking
Mm.
up down there. And then it started to be filtered in these feelings like, I think I had this dream where, I had this reoccurring dream that this was always happening. And I just kept that information to myself for the most part.
Yeah.
And so, for those of you who don't really know my story, like I grew up in a really religious household, Christian beliefs, and
Mm.
we went to church every Sunday, very sort of strict belief system on what things were and what they weren't. And that wasn't really part of a conversation I could have with anybody to open up spirituality.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling like, okay, with this was something that I knew was going on, couldn't make sense of it. And then very, very vivid, remembered events that were happening. And I started to think, okay, like, am I making this up? Right. Like at first I didn't
Yeah.
realize. And the big convincer that happened was I flew home to see my sister who lives in Alberta, and I'm over in the Toronto area now. And we sat down one day, and I don't even know what triggered the conversation. It was late at night. We were visiting. This was a few years back. And all of a sudden, she turns to me and she says, "Do you remember that woman in the basement?" And I
Wow.
just like must have looked like I was in total shock at the moment. And
Yeah.
here it turns out that my sister and I had this exact same memory, and her memory of me doing it,
Yeah.
going down to the basement to get me and seeing me having this
Wow.
communication with something there. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like you can't, how do I was
What's her
just
memory
floored.
like? Then I wonder about that going
Yeah.
down to the pitch dark and her
Well,
sisters.
it's interesting because we've really talked about that over the years, and she was quite afraid for me. So she had a different level of experience, right,
Yes.
of what was
Yeah.
going on,
Yeah.
and she's very in tune as well, but different aspects of who we are in any moment, right?
For sure.
So she
Different.
was quite afraid.
Yeah, the different angles, that's what they say. Like a car accident, 20 people watch it. Everyone's got a different perception on what
Yeah,
happened, right? A different story that they're writing down on what happened, right? So how do you
exactly.
think, what is the message from that?
Yeah, so I connected the dots so many years later. And the amazing
Mhm.
thing for me that's happened is if I were to say, start from today, and then I have an experience that happens next week, next month, next year, they're just individual things that don't really connect necessarily because I'm looking back like from the starting point. But
Yeah.
when I'm able to then look at my timeline, right, throughout life and all the things that have happened, they all start to come together to create this amazing web of events that just all of a sudden make sense.
Yeah.
And as I've had other experiences in other homes I've lived in, and really started to come into, spirit and connecting with spirit,
Yeah.
it has allowed me to understand that that was really just sort of the first connection point, that there was
Mm.
something within me that was curious, something that was communicating with me. I've never
Yeah.
felt it was anything that was, negative or harmful, but
Yeah.
it was just an experience to learn from at that point in my life.
Yeah. And it's awesome when we can look back at our lives and we see the different things that we've been through, and then we start aligning it and putting these pieces together throughout our life. It's such a beautiful thing when we start doing that in our life, when we're at the space to be able to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because we need to be in that space on our path.
So fast forward, a good 20 years, and I find myself living in a, beautiful home. I'm married. I have a great husband, and on the outside, it's a great life, but it wasn't an authentic life. I was living the
Mm.
things that I thought that I was supposed to do, didn't have any spiritual awareness at the time. And I'm living in this house that is this like magnificent piece of energy that I was tapping into in my sleep, but not realizing it and sort of pushing it away and regressing and, repressing the things that were really a part of me. And I'm having a lot of sleep troubles at this time in my life. So a lot of anxiety. And because I wasn't really walking the true path of what I was meant to in this life, and having anxiety in form of a separation, right, of who I am. I believe that anxiety lives in the space between the authentic person that you know that your soul really wants to grow into and has wholeness around, and the side of you that you think that you need to be. And we really flip into it quite easily in the way that the world just is at this current point. But I'm experiencing it in my sleep where I'm having a lot of trouble getting to sleep. And when I do, I'm having these reoccurring dreams where now I understand more so to be where I'm essentially walking a line between other dimensions at times. And all of this really sort of leading me to wake up, but I'm not seeing any of the signs. And I'm lying there one night and I'm sleeping, my eyes are closed, and all of a sudden I hear this deep voice like inside my head. It wasn't like listening to earphones. It wasn't an external sound. It was so deep within my hearing that just said, Kady, wake up. And it was like this bellow that literally like shook me. And my eyes popped open and I looked around the room and I thought, like, there's got to be somebody in this room at this moment. And at that moment, I started to realize like I had been actually hearing things for quite some time that were of that reminiscent, like in my head, but not necessarily coming from somewhere. And it was like, it was speaking to me directly. And it was essentially my wake up call to start paying attention to like, what is going on here in your life?
Yeah. And then how has that affected your life since
Yeah.
that
So
happening? How's the transition for you?
yeah, I've started to learn to listen to how that voice comes through. So it's really helped me to, again, as a learning mechanism, you think back to communicating with somebody in the basement, essentially that's strengthening my communication with spirit. And now with this, having an actual auditory component to it. So I like to talk about within my work, the clear senses, right? You've got clairvoyance, clairaudience, there's 5 clear senses. And I feel like throughout my life, I've had the opportunity to develop each clear sense through something happening. And as I started to realize, okay, well, this means something. I've been hearing things always. Let's tap into what that is. The most beautiful things started to happen where I would hear, it was almost like orchestra music. And I would just, sit for a moment and hear the orchestra music. And it was just a way of indicating sort of vibration of where I was. I could hear it in an auditory sense. So It's been a wonderful gift.
Yeah. And then once we're awoken to the gifts within us, we keep thriving with it. We keep growing with it. And it helps us in our path, one for ourselves, because we have to, grow with ourselves. But then it's like the ripple effect on how we give back, how we use it, to give back. Yeah. And, that's such a beautiful thing. And it moves right on into the next one that we have here for you. Is altering the state of lower energies. So something that you're doing on healing, with it, putting it into some form of healing, on giving back. So if you want to share how that personal experience on what you went through, and then how today you're giving back in the way that you are.
Yeah, so I didn't realize I could do this. And some of the things that, I've sort of thought over the years that I thought were weird about me were actually things that were very, very normal about how I experience energy, essentially. And what happened initially is I on occasion throughout my life would get this immediate sensation of like nausea sometimes. And it was almost like I remember people joking when I first got married forever, like, oh, maybe you're pregnant. I would all of a sudden have, right, like this sense of nausea that you might have in a first trimester. And I never was, it was never, and I knew that that was not what it was, but I was never sick. And it was just this thing that would come and go. And I was in this training one day, a few years back, where we were moving through some deep meditation process and, learning some new skills in that sense. And I all of a sudden had the feeling that I was used to feeling throughout my entire life. But because I had been developing my clear senses, I had a visual that came with it as well. And the visual was almost like this dial. And what happens for me is what's being sensed is what I'll call negative, disruptive, or sometimes shadow energy. And it's not in this, scary sense that there's like a demon in the room or anything like that. It's just
Mhm.
we can bring into our lives at any moment through thought, experience, negative energies. And that can be through lower vibration with thoughts that we're having, you're triggered of a memory that maybe was something that was hard that you went through. It's
Yeah.
inviting that negative energy into the space. And
Yeah.
I was in a group setting at the time, and this flood came in. And what I experienced differently that particular time was as the physical feeling that was presented was being lifted, I was seeing almost like a dial, a clock that was moving counterclockwise. And it was like sweeping away counterclockwise. And
Yeah.
so had no idea what that meant. I knew that I immediately felt better, came out of the meditation and unpacked that info with the people that I was there around. And this is where I started to understand that the left sort of clockwise turning for me was indicating the clearing. It was the clearing work that was happening on a visual sense
Okay.
of that negative energy that was within the room.
Wow.
Yeah. So from here, I started to more tangibly understand what that feeling meant. So understanding the physical sensation that happened within my
Mm.
body. This now happens. At first, it was very drastic. So I remember even horseback riding. I used to be an avid rider, and all of a sudden, I'm riding in the arena, and there
Yeah.
was a group of people that came in, and immediately that sensation came on. So much so that like horses are really intuitive, right? They feel
Yes.
everything you're doing. We had
Yeah.
to stop. I had to clear before I could get back on the horse.
Yeah.
And now it's gotten where, I've developed the skill. So it's more of a notion of I know that something is there. Sometimes I pick it up for somebody else and I'll connect and say, hey, like what's going on? I'm picking up that and I'll ask it in terms of like, how's your day going? Right? Like what's going on right now? Is there something that you're working on? And usually when I get that sense, there is something they're feeling. So the other person is feeling really heavy all of a sudden.
Mm.
And
So
I
it's
will move through.
connecting with the spirit that is
Yeah.
in that lower vibration,
Yeah.
and just having a dialogue with them, seeing with where they're at, and then they're affecting the person who is living that energy on not knowing is causing them to
Yeah.
hold them back in some way. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
that.
many times it's like physical location oriented. So really empathetic
Mm.
people, I find have really, if you enter a space, right, a workspace that's a
Yeah.
building that has legitimately people going through hard things in their own lives,
Yeah.
you enter that space, you pick that up, you feel it. Sometimes in a physical sense, if you're tapped into it, it
Yeah.
can be cleared. It
Yeah.
can be physically cleared in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I was really excited to hear about this because it's one of the processes I do as well in giving back to people.
Yeah.
And with me, I had 50 beings that were attached to me all my life. They were the reason why I tried to commit suicide all those times in my life, was because of these beings that were attached to me from previous experiences that I lived through of suffering. And all my life, I carried them with me. So the sensitivity of who I am really felt that. I really felt their energy, and they would hold me in a dark space where it was so hard for me to try to free myself from, and I couldn't, and I just didn't want to be here no more because of how I felt within. And no one can experience or understand it unless you are in my shoes, or
Yeah.
they have reached that space to that level. And it was through a dream state as well, because you and I have very vivid dreams and we remember for the work that we need to do in this dimension here. I was shown on how to heal them. Once I healed all these beings that were attached to me that I could feel throughout all my life, but I didn't understand it, instantly the next day, I've never suffered with depression again. There's not a day in my
Wow.
life I had extreme feelings of depression. They were gone for me. And that's the
Wow.
power of lower energy that we cannot see, um, that are attaching to people, right? They really have control over your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. They can
Mhm.
really get in the way. So I understand the same as you with going through. It's just a different way, but it's the exact same thing on healing these beings that are suffering on the other side. And me and Kady can have a dialogue with them, connect with them, and then we can also heal them to release them from people, and then that will give them more clarity within their mind to not have no control in the way of having them affecting us like they can, right?
Yeah.
Very,
And
yeah.
here's the thing that's, so important, which I'm sure you understand, but maybe others out there listening don't yet,
Mm,
is the idea of spiritual hygiene, right? So when you
mm,
are experiencing things that are of a lower vibration or something that's difficult in life and not tangibly understanding it, know that that's because there is the possibility of opening to the other side as well, which is a beautiful thing. So
mm,
it's kind of like this two-way door where you can't just let in
yeah.
whatever can flow in, right? There's got to be also this sort of a boundary of holding light, of holding energetic shielding. And it's something
Yeah.
that I do daily for myself because I do so much of this work, right?
Me
That
too,
we've got
yeah.
to protect our energy. And
Yeah.
that's done through so many different ways. You,
Yeah.
you do what you gravitate and resonate with most, but
Yeah.
it's just, I notice such a difference in my life when I am regimented about, it's
Yeah.
just like brushing my teeth in the morning. Actually, I do it
Yeah.
before I brush my teeth. It's that important.
Yeah. Because we know how it
Yeah.
affects us.
Yeah.
Right? We really do. We understand the depths of how energy that we cannot see, that is always around us, how they interact. And then sometimes they're not serving our highest good. And
Yeah.
then I'm the same. Like there's certain crystals. I was not a man of crystals before. Believe me, I was this big jack man at the gym, would never hear of it. And now today in my life, I wear them because it makes a difference on keeping my energy within my auric field just more secure, right?
Yeah.
More shielded, so that every day I live in a higher plane without having these other energies intervene and get in the way to lower the frequency of energy that moves through us. And I live in this
Mhm.
higher plane. It helps me, right? The
Yeah.
same as you. So I seen there's a comment here. And who's this here? Oh, Diane Waterman. Hello. Thank you for sharing. Much love.
Hi,
She seems
Dan.
familiar. I've seen her around, I think,
Yeah.
once or twice there. Hey. And she says, wow, loving this. Thank you for sharing. Yes, Kady. Definitely
Thanks for being
grateful.
here.
And for those who are hopping on, we are going to be doing a live guided meditation through her on our future, on our path for what is to unfold. And you guys can participate as well for your own well-being. And we're just going to go through. We have two more before the live meditation that she's going to guide us through with her connection and gifts that she uses in her life to help people. So the next one is Quantum Change Process and NLP Master Practitioner, of who she is today. I had the experience. I'll let her share about what that is first for people who are wondering. I had firsthand experience through Zoom. We did our video call, and it was such a beautiful experience on more awakening in my life to help me raise up on my path within my life. And yes, so now if you just want to share what this exactly is with what you're doing and giving back to people today.
Yeah. So NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. And it's really just the way that we communicate with ourselves and others around us, the process that we develop through habits and how it shows up in our lives. So we've all got these really deep unconscious layers. And the really cool thing about this and spiritual work is that we tap into not only like this lifetime here and now and how you're experiencing every thought, every feeling, every experience you've ever had somewhere on a deep level, it's stored. But there's also generations before you, ancestors before you, past lives before you, where this information really is accessible if we tune into it. So I've got formalized training as an NLP Master Practitioner, and I use this to help us uncover, first of all, the layers here and now in terms of how they're presenting in your life as problems and patterns, usually and most of the time. And the quantum change process is a really intensive 3-hour session that I do with clients, intensive in such a wonderful way, the way it unfolds. And what we do is really get to the root on a very deep knowing level of what it is that has been sort of following you your entire life, the thing that is meant to let go of, to give you some peace and harmony, to move forward. And it's like this anchor point that gets released. And it unfolds like layers of an onion really continually, right? And I'm sure for you and myself, I experienced a session years ago before I was a practitioner myself, and it's still unfolding. Like the things that I experienced during that session are still guiding my life and allowing for me to make growth.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful, growing, constantly growing. And for me, it's always, I feel more alive. There's
Yeah.
a feeling, the energy right now. I just feel so much energy. The frequency of energy just moves through you so fast, of the aliveness of who you are within.
Yeah.
And when I did that session with her, you guys, I seen all the relationships in my life. They were all linked together on how I would feel from every relationship, not just from dating, but my children, my family, on how I felt with them. There was a connection to each one that was holding me back. And that experience of going through that, and again, that was an awakening for me on a level, to now seeing the pattern in my life, that now I can make an adjustment in my life. And then it has helped me move forward and not being held back from these patterns that we're here to learn for. Some, not just we're here to learn from, but to catch ourselves on what we're not learning in our relationships, for me with this example,
Yeah.
but that was holding me back all the time, right?
Yeah. And it's really incredible that you said like this life, energy sort of that you feel, because one of the main components of a QCP session is that we deal with this, the thymus gland that's located in this area here. And it's really known
Okay.
as the life source energy. And that is what we are activating on a spiritual level. We move through some very tangible steps in session, but that's what's activated that has
Yeah.
been decreased. So it's a very interesting thing that you experience this
Yeah.
energy, because that's 100% like what's going on.
And then looking into her left eye in the mirror, when you had me doing that at the end, I had a very beautiful experience, of looking into my eye and in the reflection, because I see, and I work with spirits, for people that don't know, all the time. I can visually see them, but so it wasn't like a scary thing to me. Nothing is scary to me in my life, because we have these awakenings to know the truth. And when we know the truth of things, we're not afraid of them anymore. There's no fear. But when I was staring in my eye, I could see the image of my body of energy through the reflection of the mirror as I was looking at myself. And I'm getting crazy goosebumps here now.
Yeah.
And it was such a beautiful experience. I feel very emotional right now. It was such a very beautiful experience of being able to see the being of who I am in the reflection of the mirror, and my physical face kind of just fading away, and my body of energy coming forth. And I feel very emotional right now, because it was such a powerful to go through an experience like that for me, and to see who you actually are in the reflection. It was priceless, right?
Yeah, it's like it removes the distortion. So for
Yeah.
me, in my experience personally, I, released a pattern that was happening since when I was in my mother's womb. So of
Mm,
course I had no conscious connection to it, but when I did, it
yeah.
released this distortion of myself where I thought I was this weak person.
Yeah.
Whereas my entire life, I've never been a weak person. It's been incredible, the things that have happened, the strength I've had to have to persevere, but I couldn't see it. And what you
That's,
can't see, you can't transform from.
yeah. Right. We need to know about it. We need to see these things so we can grow. And then there's just one more we're going to hop into, of her transformational experience for her on helping and guiding her to her live her purpose today, living through her authentic self, before we get into the guided meditation she's going to do for us. And that is her vivid dream states. So if
Yeah.
you want to share on these, on how they've affected your life
Yeah.
in a beautiful way.
This is kind of this extension of sleepwalking, but more in a controlled state. So I've
Mm.
always been a really vivid dreamer, where it's to the point I feel like I'm watching a movie, and I could,
Yeah.
wake up in the middle of the night, put myself back into it, feel like I could do that same scene all night or shift it. And it's always been this thing that I've been able to do. And I thought everybody could do it until I started talking to others who didn't necessarily experience this.
Yeah.
And I had this reoccurring dream that was going on for my entire life, where it felt like a car accident. It wasn't a big dramatic, life altering state type accident, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a very odd feeling as I was having this accident. And it was almost like, when you're going to rear end somebody, right? And you make that moment right before it, and it's like that quick panic moment. But I knew in my dream that I wasn't actually rear-ending someone. I wasn't going forward, but I was feeling like it was this weird thing I couldn't articulate. And
Mm.
I would wake up, there was panic that was associated to it, but I would wake up over and over and over again and experiencing this. And all of a sudden, years later, this was only about a year and a half ago, where I am driving on the highway. I am traveling back from the airport. I had a speaking engagement that I was driving home from. I had about a 2-hour drive, and it was back-to-back traffic. This was coming out of the Toronto Pearson Airport. So anyone who knows the 401 highway there is like, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, you're backed up solid. And there's all these like semi-tractor trailers and stuff that are on the road with you. So we're at like a dead stop, and this is happening in real life, an experience I'm having. And I remember talking on the phone to a good friend of mine, catching up, and all of a sudden I was experiencing exactly what had been happening in my dreams in all of these years, my entire life, where I was moving towards this other vehicle, but I was not moving. And I thought for a second here, whoa, like I was really confused, so much so that I like had to hang up the phone with my friend. I said, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I felt like I was moving, but I wasn't moving. And then there was impact with a truck that I was in behind. And I was in such a state of confusion because I felt like I'd already lived this before, but I wasn't moving. And like, am I losing my mind? Like, what just happened here? And as I had my car in park, like I literally in that moment where I thought I was moving, I'm going to rear end this vehicle in front of me, even though I'm stopped in traffic. I had moved my car into park. And in that moment, I looked down, I realized there's no way I could be moving. How did I just experience this? And what had happened was the car in front of me, it was actually a big semi-tractor trailer, had rolled backwards into me. And because there was so much traffic around me, I couldn't, you know, when you're going forward, you can, like, you see the side motions, you know, you're going forward.
Yeah.
Well, there was impact and it was very disorienting. It had nothing to do with me doing anything wrong. This vehicle had moved backwards into me, but it freaked me out so much because I had already experienced it. And now I understood why I didn't get what I was doing in the dream. So it was really one of these first moments where something that I had dreamed was something that was going to happen. And again, a learning moment. Not that, you know, it wasn't something catastrophic. My vehicle was actually pretty untouched. It didn't even hit me very hard. There was no real damage, no injuries. Everybody was fine. But it gave me, it was almost like a premonition, right? Where I had this initial knowing of this happening, and it actually came true. And I remember calling my husband and like, I was really distraught about it. Right. And he says, okay, well, like it's happened now. So you're good. Right. Like, you know that it's happened. You're not going to dream it again. Like it's done. It happened. And ever since then, that dream never occurred again. No more reoccurring dreams on that subject.
Yeah. And that's another beautiful thing, growing into the gifts that are within us, right? Going through that experience. Now, me and Kady have talked about this earlier because I go through vivid dreams all the time too. I remember the things I'm going through more since 3 years ago, my big awakening and working with spirit and doing the work I'm doing now. It's like I remember what I'm doing on the other side when I wake up, and it's to draw things in for me to help my work here. For you as well, because you have a lot of vivid dreams. How do you see them? Because a lot of people out there have vivid dreams and they're wondering, you know, at the beginning, we were wondering, okay, what does this mean? What's happening here? I'm remembering these dreams. I feel like I'm there. What's going on? And then we understand because we've been doing it for a while now. But how has that affected your life of going through these vivid dreams and the transformations for you with understanding why it is that you're having them?
Yeah, the first thing that I always guide people to do, like we said in the beginning there, was really paying attention to feelings. So like if you're just starting out trying to make sense of what your dreams really are, the first thing to do is when you wake up and you feel like you've got that vivid memory of something, write down the fragmented pieces. Because oftentimes at this point it might be fragmented for you, or you remember during the day, like a piece here and there, and really notice what are the feelings that were associated. Because what started to happen for me when I really paid attention to the things I remembered, the feelings that were attached, was there what I'll call hand-me-downs. So hand-me-downs are when I experience something ahead of time that's for someone else. And this may be different for you. Sometimes it's for me, sometimes it's for someone else, where then when I walk into the actual place, when this fragment of something actually occurs, I know that there's a message for the person that I'm there in that space with. So it's nothing about the dream that I actually dreamed. I connect back to then what was the feeling, because that's the spirit connection for that person. So it happens. And I think everybody's really different how we
Yes.
connect. And I
Yeah.
love that about
Yeah.
everyone who does this work.
Yeah.
So if you're, having vivid dream states, notice that there's some sort of information that's trying to come forward for either yourself or someone that you may come in contact with in the future, and just really, write down what those fragments are, and you'll be able to discern them eventually, right? And it won't be logical at first, because that's how the unconscious tends to work, is it gives these little bits and pieces of things that are very symbolic sometimes.
Yeah, they're just pieces that we get, and then it's like we have to put like we're saying, the pieces of a puzzle. We're only getting a few pieces of them, and then we have to put it together. And then it's helping, like you said, ourselves or helping other people.
Yeah, and I really just think it's all about how you're connecting into your wholeness, right? So as you're moving towards wholeness, and we all are throughout this life, it's training. Every time it's teaching you a little bit more about how to trust and communicate with yourself.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. When we start doing that, we start seeing the difference and shift in our life. And then I see there's another message here. I would love a message for my future if possible. Well, we'll see how we're actually going to jump into that now. So if you guys are in, if you're driving or whatnot, please don't be doing that when we're anytime doing that. Please don't be doing that. But having yourself in a relaxed position now, because we are going to dive in. I'm very excited, and she's going to share now. She's going to do it specifically for me, but you guys can follow through along as well, and she'll share the information on how you can participate.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm excited to do this. So what we're going to do, anyone who's listening, whether you're listening live or you're catching the replay later, absolutely follow along with us, unless you're driving or in a place that's not safe to do it. So you want to be relaxed. I'm going to guide you down into a very particular state. And this is where we're going to be able to access information in regards to your soul's path, your soul's destination, your destiny, what's moving forward for you in your next steps. And as we do that, we'll come back afterwards, and I'm going to unpack some of this information with Jeff here, so that you can start to discern what some of it means for you, and we'll see where it goes. I'm pretty excited to do this.
I am too. I'm very excited.
Yeah, this is like the passion part of everything that I love doing. The meditations are like just my passion baby.
I know. I've shared one of your meditations before. Right away I fell in love with it when actually, out of the experiences that I give back to people in life today, Eckhart Tolle has been a part of my life. Milan Moritz has been a part of my life, and all these very beautiful people in the world, on how they're giving back through their authentic self. And I've grown in beautiful ways, and now I give back to people. Kady Romagnuolo is another one who is a part of my life on giving back, because when I listen to one of her guided meditations, the relaxation that she puts you through, that is a part of what I am doing on giving back today. This is a part of my process, is the relaxation part. So, I'm very excited. She's very good at what she does here now. And if you guys are all relaxed and in a good position.
Yeah, get yourself settled.
Thank you.
You can do this sitting or lying down. And I know for you, Jeff, you really like to ground yourself. Some people know that they need to ground first. So you can absolutely do that now first before we begin, if you'd like to. And that's just envisioning your feet planted firmly on the ground, that you're gaining roots that are growing deep into the ground. And I love your analogy. Oftentimes you have people wrap those deep roots around a boulder deep within the earth. So do that now if you feel that you want to.
Well, no,
that's from you.
Core of the earth now.
Use the core of the. I love how you do grounding.
I draw nutrients through Gaia. Comes up through the core of the earth, and I get her when she comes up, right? So
so beautiful.
A year from now, me and Kady we're all going to be different people in the world. A year from now, so especially what I shared on a year ago. 6 months from now, we're going to have more information, because we thrive in our life with our connection, and we all can. I'll be quiet now. I'll let you do your thing.
Okay. All right. I'm going to guide y'all down into this. So just relax into your space. Sitting or lying down is perfect, and just follow along. All right. And just soften your gaze and gently close your eyes. Let your arms rest gently alongside you or on your lap. And if it's comfortable, allow for your palms to face upwards. With a deep breath in through the nose, allow your body to relax. And as you breathe out through the mouth, release all stuck and uncomfortable energy. Again, breathe in through the nose, deep into the belly, and out through the mouth, just releasing with a sigh. And one more time, in through the nose, breathe that right down into your feet, and release out through the mouth. Good. And feel all of your muscles and tendons relaxing, relaxing more and more with each breath. Soft and relaxed, allowing your breathing to continue in and out. Let your shoulders fall and release the muscles in your neck and your jaw. In a moment, I'm going to begin relaxing you further. Deeper, we are going to travel into the storehouse of your soul's destiny. This room holds the answers to what's ready to transform and shift, to allow for you to move forward in your life towards your highest path. What next steps are you ready to take? And there's no need to try or do anything. Your unconscious mind and connection to inner spirit know exactly where to take you. With each breath, more and more you are relaxed, softening even more the tiny muscles around your eyes. Let the support beneath you fade away. Imagine now in your mind a passageway that is opening down to the core of your foundation. At the base of this foundation, you are grounded in stable roots, where understanding of oneself is present. It's a place that feels safe and full of self-compassion, unconditional love, and appreciation of all self aspects. As you walk towards this passageway, whichever direction it may feel, notice that as you travel through this corridor, you are moving deeper and deeper into the space that holds your answers. You now find yourself walking through the other side of this passageway, where in front of you are 3 doorways. These doorways are located deep within the storehouse of your soul's destiny. And as you focus on them, you notice there's a number on each door, from 1 to 3. Which doorway appeals to you most? Which one is calling your attention? Which one do you feel drawn towards? Walk now towards the door that feels right for you. 1, 2, or 3, and open the door to cross over the threshold. Now in the space beyond the threshold, what do you see within this room? Are there any sounds or feelings you notice? What does this room look like to you? Does it represent a place, a time, or maybe a future experience yet to come? Just notice what comes to mind first, and whatever is there at this moment is perfect for you. Take a few moments here to listen, feel, or see if there is a message here for you. Explore the contents of this room for a few moments and allow for these details to direct your energy. Good. Now, with a slow, deep breath, take in this new energy that wants to flow in. Feel it move through every cell as unconditional love and appreciation of all self aspects are realized now. Good. You may now turn to leave your room, making your way back out towards the area from which you came. closer towards the passageway that will lead you back to here and now. This passageway is filled with warm, golden light that shimmers off your skin, brightening your glow and affirming your new sense of self and purpose. Good. And take your time traveling back up from your foundation towards the now and through your passageway. As you notice yourself coming back to here and now, take a few moments to wiggle your toes. Feel the weight of your body grounded to where you sit or lie. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes and just allow yourself to adjust back into your space. Excellent. Welcome back.
I don't want to come back.
I know.
I really don't want to.
It's a wonderful space to be in. And I love the sensory acuity of watching people go through this type of meditation, because you see the little nuances of when there's, a bit of light and all of that. So
You've seen me smirk once or twice then?
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful. It's wonderful to experience.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
So let me ask you this. This is what we're going to do next. Okay. So if
you guys can throw down comments as well if for any of your experiences, just as she's explaining, feel free and I'll come back to them.
Yeah, please do. Because what I would love to know is, which doorway did you choose? Because what we're going to do is door 1, 2, or 3 is we're going to unpack what was behind your doorway, what the message that was channeled in for each doorway was for you afterwards. And then we're going to do something extra special with that information afterwards. So this is for everybody here at the moment. If, I'd love to hear in the comments if you were door 1, 2, or 3. And how about for you, Jeff? So which door did you choose?
Well, first I thought 1, and then I thought, well, maybe 2. And then I'm like, no, I could feel my energy pulling to 1. I was like, okay, 1 was for me.
Yeah. Okay. And did you experience anything in your room?
I sure did.
Do you want to share?
With that, I opened the door, and it was a beam. It was nothing but... sometimes you have to think of human words to put these experiences into. It was the pureness of light, and it was just a room of the purest of light. And at first I was trying to what's in here? It was so bright that then it started to, I think it was because my attention then, it was to draw back a bit. And then it was more of almost like a scenery of a sky, but it was more the light, just the beaming of this bright light that was in there. And then as I looked down, I was wondering, okay, well, what's in here? I was trying to see of what was in this room. And it was almost, it was like a stack of papers, white papers. And then these white papers started, like a wind came, and they all turned into white feathers. And then the papers turned into these white, big white feathers started coming from these pages. Can you see?
Yeah.
You can't see them. I don't know if you can see them or not, but I got some crazy frequency energy moving through me right now. And it was such a powerful experience to feel. Now, to try to pick out, what that was, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
so absolutely. And so oftentimes it's a resonance of feeling, right? It's not a tangible thing. This is kind of like moving through our dream sequences too. It's the same thing. You're not getting, well, I had this image and I'm doing this and this is what's next and this is my destiny, right? It doesn't come in those motions. It gets easier to discern what that is, but for you specifically, so door number 1, and anybody else who had chosen door number 1, what I did ahead of time was I channeled in messages specifically for each door. Now, I have no idea which door you're going to gravitate towards, but I know that your energy, your spirit will connect into what I've intended in the space for that door. So the message for you specifically is home. If you chose door number 1, this is all about coming home. So no wonder it felt like beautiful light for you, because that's your coming home. And the specific message in there, and I had to write these down as I was channeling these in before we came on, was because sometimes the words are they're words, but they're not words that we would place in a certain way that we would say them in common conversation today. So I always write things down specific as they come through. So it's don't skip a step. Now is the time to come home to your essence, to love deeply the parts of you that were once hidden, to embrace the return, retreat into self before the life and energy of a new direction calls you forth. You will know when you're ready to emerge. Take this as your sign to rest, and to know that in rest, you will move forward more authentically than action at this time. So doorway number 1 is leading you home. And does that like connect with anything? Does that bring together any memories, give you any ahas on anything?
And again, it comes, see, my strengths and weaknesses. No, I don't like using the term weakness, but is interpreting my feelings, because I'm very visual with being able to see out of my eyes how I can. I'm very strong in that way. But the feeling of trying to put it into words, it's almost like it's always there. It's always there. I feel emotional right now.
Yeah.
Because our home within us, that is always within us as well, you know, it's always there, right? So to fall back on that, on my path of just knowing that I'm always connected, it's always still there, that feeling of home, with support. So it's knowing that, having, even though with the support that I know that I have, it's just a more concrete feeling within me, of knowing that it's just right there. I'm not at a distance from feeling that I'm supported. It's right there. It's just that opening right to a door within seconds, minutes, but within seconds, we're there. We have the connection of that feeling of home and being secure and safe and nothing to worry about, and guidance, that the guidance is there, to not worry. So those are things that are just coming to me on the feeling aspect.
Well, and I have for you some very specific additional information that I'm going to give you. So in regards to some of the work that I do, Soul Genesis readings is something that I do with clients. And what it does is it opens up the pathway to what your next steps are, what blocks might be presenting, what shifts, we call them transitional gateways, that you might be accessing at this time in order to move into a destiny gateway, which is closer and closer moving your soul into wholeness, like what you're here in this lifetime to do. And that's part of what Soul Genesis readings are. So I've done sort of a mini snippet for you. Normally the sessions are an hour to 2 that we really dive into quite a bit of information, but I've done some ahead of time for you, which I think will really play into what you've received in that meditation. What I want to do for everyone else first quick is let them know what doors 2 and 3 were, because if you followed along. Oh, wonderful. So number 3. Thanks so much, Diane, for following along. And so let's start with door number 3 for you, and then we'll go back to 2. Go ahead and go back, right? Watch the replay and do this meditation and listen to what messages are for you. So door number 3 is all about where paths diverge. And depending on what you experienced in your room, here's an additional message for you specifically if door number 3 was what you walked through. And that's that you have known for some time that there is a choice to make. In whichever area of your life this calls to, you are able to trust your actions at this time. So feel with your heart for which route to walk, and know that there is truly no wrong answer for you at this time. So I don't know what you experienced, but there's a connection to that there for you. And I'd love to hear if that makes sense to you in any way. Sometimes the ahas come later too, dream state, right?
Sure.
Like listen later on. Door number 2, for anyone who experienced walking through there, is about letting go of what is holding you hostage. So here's the door where does your voice in your head mimic pain from the past in your quietest moments? Your soul wants you to know that this voice is not you, and it's time to stop giving it life. Your next steps are to notice when this voice is present and to question if fear is present in those moments too. There is nothing to fear but fear itself. And if you are experiencing this, know that you are rising above it more than you're giving yourself credit for. So door number 2 is really accessing sort of shadow sides, right? And discerning how it is that really integrates with who we are. So if you had door number 2, then it's a really letting go message, right? Your next steps.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it is so important. Just because you hear a message once, for instance, with my last show I had with Andy Grant, and he did worked with his gift at the end. I listened to it probably 10 more times throughout different days, or even the same day, maybe. I won't lie, but it aligned to me, and I got different pieces each time I listened to it. So even
Yeah.
with Kady here today, I for sure will come back, and I'll probably listen to it a good 20 more times, because throughout my next few days, next week, or up to a week, it's going to align with me in a different way, where it's going to connect, and I get more of an aha moment. So it is really
Mhm.
important to, for those to come back to it again, hear what she had to say, and align it to your life, because it is going to play a part. And Diane here, my mother, she did right. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, I am making hard decisions right now. Mine was a vision of myself sitting on a front porch swing with a loving partner on a bright sunny day. There was a beautiful breeze from the sea, and there was a brand new car sitting in the driveway. I had a baby in my arms and the feeling of family around me.
Oh,
That's
wow.
wonderful.
Beautiful. Yeah. Just in regards to your hard decisions, there's no wrong answers for you at this time.
Mm,
Trust where you're led.
yeah.
And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Jeff, are you ready to hear a little bit more
I
about
sure
your
am.
specifics? Okay, so this is from what would be a soul genesis reading if anyone else is curious out there later.
Mm,
That so your soul grouping is part of the information that I provide, and there's 11 different soul groupings that I tap into, and you can think of this sort of as star seed, right? This notion of coming from the stars, from somewhere else, and reincarnating. So you most definitely are one of the oldest soul groups. So one of the oldest souls. And I'm sure you feel that with a deep resonance, but here's a confirmation for you. And
I
it's of
feel young at
Palladian.
heart, though. I feel
Yeah,
young at
well,
heart.
you've got the experience though, right? Of this just
Yeah.
this old soul vibe. And this is of Pallades energy. So I don't know if you've ever looked into Palladian energy.
Okay.
But
I
that's what's
will.
coming through with your soul energy. And the thing
Mm,
with Palladians is it's so among the oldest soul groups, but they're really here to help humanity evolve spiritually. Like
mm,
that is the soul level purpose of Palladian energy here. And they're naturally really able to align with healing energies. So you've
mm,
discovered this already, but if I was saying this to you, however many years ago before you tapped into that, it would
mm,
still be true for you. It just you hadn't tapped into it yet, right?
mhm.
Now, the importance with Palladian energy and having that as a soul grouping is that it's really important not to bypass crucial steps. So I find that really interesting because I think what we have with door number 1 was don't skip a step. And I
Yeah.
had no idea you would choose door number 1, but yet your message as
Yeah.
Palladian energy is like, don't bypass crucial steps. So there's something in that for you. I don't know what you're going through specifically, but it may not be now,
Well,
it
I'm
may be
always going
later.
through something of growing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And just noticing like the difference between when self confidence is there versus the ego creeping in, because we
Mm,
all go through that back and forth dance, right? Especially as we grow.
yeah.
So for Palladian energy, now your transitional gateway that you're accessing right now, this is all about what might be showing up in life as a little bit of a struggle. And once you can shift through that, then
Yeah.
what's next for you beyond that gateway, right? Think of it as
Mm,
crossing thresholds.
yeah.
And right now, the gateway you're accessing is embracing all self aspects. Okay, so this is interesting because this is where you integrate shadow aspects of self. And I don't know if you're doing any shadow work recently or if you have in the past. This is when it is integrating for you specifically. Okay,
Mhm.
so this is being able to recognize that all those shadow aspects of self are part of wholeness, right? It's not that we want to have only the light parts. The light, dark, the mix between the two really does give us a lot of learnings and accessing new belief system structures right now. So you're actually sort of recalibrating what you believe to be true and integrating all of that knowledge through all of these aspects and really tearing down the defenses to be able to clear any shadow aspects that are there that are not serving you. So this is what you're sort of doing naturally and shifting right now. It's your
Yeah.
gateway.
Yeah.
And once you can bring into all of those aspects into consciousness, what you're going to do is like physically walk them through life. So you may experience that through physically doing something different in your life through your habits, but know that that's the shadow side integrating into wholeness for you. Okay.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
Okay. And so what that allows for you then to move into is your destiny gateway. This is really cool. So this doesn't come up very often, but the destiny gateway is all about like what you're accessing after this shift. So after any of these shadow aspects are really integrated that you've learned from, you're entering what's called the bardo. And the bardo is the place that is like of surrender to higher power. It's the space in between. It's like the nothingness to experience in a really positive way. And I'm sure you kind of relate to when I say like the nothingness, how that's a really wonderful
It came
thing.
up right away.
Yeah.
Never ending story, but it was bad.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, but I'm like, okay, no, this is good. But I remember the nothingness. I remember hearing that from the Never Ending Story. If anyone ever watched the best movie ever, 80s.
Oh, it's so funny. We were talking about that, Rob and I, my husband, like 2 days ago, of course,
Yeah.
coincidentally. And it's interesting that that's the first thing that pops into your mind because it's relevant. And the relevant is the blending of the shadow side to that. Nothingness for somebody can be very terrifying, right? Depending on the state in which you're in. But when we transmute that into nothingness being you're actually past that threshold of I have to be or not to be, you're in this middle ground. So, right? That's what you're moving towards. And it's about surrendering to being in that higher power and experiencing that state of non-being. So really transcending into that. And once you do that, it's really indicative of healing a lot of patterns based in fear.
Yeah. And that's exactly all, that I'm going through right now. Definitely. And that it can be said for all of us. When we go through experiences in life, our belief system starts to change, realizing that the things we once believed aren't actually so, because we've had personal experiences to show us the difference, and we have lived through it, where now we know. Before it's a belief where we're believing things, now we go through the personal experience and now we know, right? And then new beliefs are forming from those personal experiences, right, of knowing, and then we start having different beliefs that start happening. Definitely in my life, going through all of that for sure, because it's never ending. I go through experiences nonstop lately. But it is just for my purpose on what it is, on where I am going. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful gateway to be accessing. And as much as it may feel like common and normal for you to go through, it's not necessarily that often that comes up. So it's pretty special.
That is. And thank you. You're very special. So, to be doing the work you're doing, you guys can reach out to her for this form of work as well for these sessions. I'm assuming you do through Zoom as well for these?
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Working worldwide, connecting with people worldwide. What a beautiful gift on giving back. And she has went over all the other work that she is doing and giving back throughout our time today. And it was a pleasure to have this conversation with you today, to put you on the spotlight on letting people know who Kady Romagnuolo is, right? Letting them reach out to you so that she can impact your life in a very beautiful way. And again, she's been a part of my life now, affecting my life in a beautiful way in many different ways through her guided meditations online that she holds. And then I will share the information and details on how to connect with her in all the beautiful ways that you can. And so thank you again so much, Kady, for coming on and sharing.
Thank you for creating the space to do it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, so thank you everyone who participated and who left a comment. And again, if you're watching the replay, we'll get back to you if you have any questions, or you can reach out to her. So I want to thank the people that were here. And then my next show, I have Jeanette Byro coming on. She is a medium, and she is going to be connecting at the end with her gift as well. She's going to share about her transitions in her life, and she's going to have 3 guides that she's been connecting with of the higher realms that are going, I believe, to speak through her, connecting to those who want to ask questions and whatnot. But I don't know 100% on what she has planned or how that's going to work out, but I know she's going to have 3 guides that she works with who are evolved light beings. So until then, I can't wait until my next show. It'll be in June, the beginning of June. And if you want to share my video, please go ahead and share it. And I wish everyone a wonderful day.